Ink-a-dink, 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 ink-a-dink. Wow! I think the Basil-A-Thon is over by now. 271 hours. Well, it's got to be over by now. Oh my God, the audience is still here. And all these jaguar shark, Basil still got his famous "where the wild things are" slippers on. Basil, you still awake? Hold on, let me tilt him a little bit more. Basil, do you know we're still on the air? Wow. Good gravy. Well, if we're still on the air in hour number 272, then we really ought to put in a good word for our corporate sponsors. Starting with, oh my God, man, I don't know how that's going to change the flavor of it. For the worse, for the better. Effervescence. Okay, let's see. What other ones? What other ones we have to... Oh, you can go back in there. Sure, why not? Okay, we've also got Dermasil, who's been endorsed also by our guest, and no, this is not Jeffrey Peterson. This is not Jeffrey Peterson's a little more metallic looking, a little bit more. Well, he's got those blue eyes too, those deep set blue eyes, or actually those bulging blue eyes. Basil, do we ever get to the all right, okay. Basil said, don't forget about Dermasil, because Dermasil is a dry skin formula, and our friend here has certainly been none the worse for the wear for using Dermasil. It's and this tube contains 25% more of something. Who knows? But the last thing I remember talking about in I don't know, however many hours we've been out, Basil. The last thing I remember talking about was you wanted me to throw the question out to the audience. When will white Americans be the minority in America? And Basil said, so make sure you remind the audience that question is a trick question. It's got an answer which it doesn't seem to be the one you might expect at face value without much thinking. And I don't know I think our audience is a fairly thoughtful, fairly intelligent, fairly introspective audience, and they think things through. They don't just blurt out answers. Most of them, at least. Okay. So the question: when will white Americans be the minority? And I'm sure we've done this on a previous show, Basil. So I know that the folks out there, although they all have question marks on their faces, they all know the answer. And of course, the answer to that is, and the operative word here is because at this point, whites in America are a slight majority, and you have Latinos. Who let Ted Nugent into the audience? He just mouthed hiss. But I know what he was really alluding to is he wants to call Latinos Hispanics. And technically there are some differences, and there are actually two separate groups of people, but Hispanics being people that are direct descendants of people in Spain, and Latinos being more along the lines of Latin Americans. But it goes beyond that now. And Ted, you can hiss all you want to, but it goes beyond that. It's a matter of the sound of the two words. Hispanics obviously has a snake-like, nasty kind of unfriendly kind of sound to it, where Latinos has a nice sound to it. It's a prettier sounding word. It's more respectful of people who are originally of Spanish origin through many generations, and are mainly the populace of Latin America, and those Latin Americans who have found their way north to the United States, either through legal means or what Ted would call illegal means. And Basil, you know the old story. You know the whole thing about how I feel about that. How people like my grandparents on my father's side came here from Ireland, and back in the day when pretty much you got off the boat at Ellis Island, and as long as you had somebody here ready to meet you that was related to you, then bing, you were right in. And my grandparents immediately got a job as caretakers on the Warburg property. Basil's quite the Little Orphan Annie fan, and or the Little Orphan Fanny am, but no. Basil is a fan of many comic strips, and Basil says he had a friend once that he knew. He hasn't seen her in a long while, but people at work used to call Little Orphan Annie, and I'm not going to go into detail on that because Basil has a penchant, and he passed it on to me too. He has a penchant for using wordplay to tease people that he likes, that he cares deeply about, but when he gets mad at somebody, he's very inclined to lower the boom on them and give them the old T-Zola. So and that's the one thing. That's the one thing apparently that Basil sort of he didn't admire it because it's not an admirable trait. He didn't admire it in George W. Bush, but he recognizes it's something that he and GWB have in common, and that Basil says, thankfully, Bush the younger didn't tease animals, and we give him credit for that. He'll give GWB credit for that. On the positive side, of course, a lot of negative credit to be passed along. But Basil used to know, and he said he talked on occasion to George W. Bush's little dog, and I can't remember the little dog's name, little black Scotty that was a family pet. It was the White House dog, and if anybody out there, or hold on, if anybody out there, and thank you, Bill Murray. Bill Murray has joined our audience again after being off. He's probably done 2 or 3 movies, and probably really good ones too. While we've been doing the Basil-A-Thon, and again, reminder to everybody that the point of this whole darn thing is we've been raising money to help out our friend Stephen T. Colbert, who's been attacked viciously by a fellow named Dan Snyder, who is the owner of the football Washington Redskins, and yada yada, same old, worth repeating. The Redskins is a derogatory term, and can't be compared to teams like the Florida State Seminoles, where the Seminoles is actually a name of an Indian nation from that portion of the United States, what once was their territory. The Seminoles were an Indian nation. You can say the word tribe. Tribe is acceptable, but I think nation, because they were. You wouldn't call, well, in our terminology nowadays, we use the word nation. Tribe has a root also, but so the Seminoles were an Indian nation that are treated respectfully by the Florida State University folks on campus, and at the beginning of every football game, Chief Osceola comes in riding on the horse, and he's dressed in ceremonial paint, which I think some people would describe as war paint. But for whatever reason, it's some kind of ceremonial paint, and he has a spear that's adorned with all kinds of feathers and whatnot. And he comes into the stadium and he throws it into the ground, and hopefully it doesn't bounce back up and stick him. But I guess AstroTurf. What? Basil, and I'm not going to quote him because just as well. But Basil's got this fetish apparently about anything that starts with the first 2 letters AS, or occasionally AZ, as. He was constantly nattering about during the NCAA basketball tournament, constantly nattering about the San Diego State University Aztecs. He's calling them the what were you calling them? Okay, now quote him. Basil's added a couple of sounds to his repertoire. Did you say toilet paper? Well, that'll give you. At any rate, that'll give you the notion of what he was, the way he was teasing the San Diego State University sports teams, particularly the basketball team, which made it a ways into the tournament, and being there. I mean, obviously, you had 498,000 teams started the tournament off, and that's every college and university in the United States was represented, except for a few of them, which apparently had fallen asleep on the date that they were supposed to apply to get into the tournament, or they were off on spring break, or off on winter break, or some sort of break. So yeah. And Basil's still brooding about this because the team he liked, and this goes to show that Basil he likes dogs. He really does. He's got Snarky, who is George H.W. Bush's pet dog. He's got Snarky behind the camera, and except for a brief period during this Basil-A-Thon where that's a whole nother that's a little phone. Oh, maybe Ted Nugent was calling back and it went through to the proper phone. But he's gone. Was here in the audience. I guess he snuck out. Right about now, he's probably crawling through his Vaseline lined moat around his castle, and whatever. So at any rate, Basil, you wanted me to bring up the question: when will white Americans be the minority? Okay, and the operative word, as I mentioned, the. Which cousin was that, Basil? Okay. Says, how does he know? The answer to that is, and it shouldn't come as too much of a surprise, that since whites are slightly above 50% now, and you have Latinos as the largest of the minorities currently, blacks, you have Asian Americans, African Americans, you have Latino Americans. They comprise pretty close to 50% now. Native Americans, in amongst them, and so Basil's question is really a trick question, and Tweety, okay. Either Tweety is telling me, Tweety is going with his feathers like this. He's either telling us that we're out of time, which I know. Hold on. No, not nearly. We're only 18 minutes into this show, and since we fit our commercials into the show, Schweppervescence. Care for some, Basil? Okay. And Dermacell. You could be this one day. You probably will. So the answer is not by any stretch of the imagination, in any foreseeable future, will white Americans be the minority. It's possible one day that they may be less than 50%, and that would be a minority. But it would still be by a huge margin the largest minority. So if you ask the question differently, when will white Americans become a minority? Possibly within the next 10, 20 years. At the rate of demographic changes. Maybe in the next census or the census after. Maybe in the 2020 census or the 2030 census, you'll see that white Americans account for fewer than 50%. but they'll still be by a long shot, the largest minority. And that's it. Ted Nugent snuck back in again. No, we want you. We want to talk about you. We don't want you to get to go your typical cat scratch craziness. So, well, we have Ted's word. Okay. So Basil, you wanted us to discuss a fellow by the name of Cliven Bundy, who he's the self-described best friend that, and I'm gonna use his term because it's not the term that this group uses to define itself or describe itself anymore. Not for a long time. He considers himself to be the Negro's. That's how he says it. He's the Negro's best friend, and also the. Did he describe them as wetbacks, or did he say? Okay, Basil said he's using the term Hispanics. He says he's the Hispanics' best friend. He recognizes the tight family unit. He respects that. Now get back out in the field and move his cattle along from one portion of government-owned, public-owned land. Why do they? Oh, okay, yeah. Basil said people that don't like the government, or as they put it, the government. They call it government land, as if it belongs to some mythical hobgoblin out there, known as the government. But in fact, it's public-owned land. We all own it. We all own it, and I don't want to use the word collectively, because when you say collectively, people's ears perk up, and their collectivism is communism, which it is, and so the word collectively is heard that way. So, but it's publicly owned land. We all own it, and those that care to use land owned by all of us for their personal use, to make money, to make a profit, to graze cattle in this case, which Cliven Bundy has done for about 20 years now, without paying a nickel. That is against the law, because he's supposed to put money into the public piggy bank. In exchange for using public land, and he hasn't done that for about almost 20 years. And the way Basil's been explaining it to me, and I think he's fairly accurate about this. I think it's a fair. Oh, Basil, you're low slung. Okay, okay. Okay. He takes the clip off when he does his Pilates. Okay, he's got to do his Pilates to keep his ears still perked up and working properly, and then we can clip them back up there. And your tie got a little ripped, Basil. You said said the tie got caught in the treadmill, and he managed to get himself untangled quickly enough so that the tie didn't get damaged too badly. But so this fellow Cliven Bundy, who's self-described best friend the Negroes and the Hispanics ever had, and he loves them dearly, and knows that the folks that have come to describe them as being Afro-Americans or African Americans were much happier back in the day when they were picking cotton and telling and singing songs and slapping their knee and doing all kinds of stuff that Clive saw in a movie called what was the name of that movie? Oh, yeah. Birth of a Nation. And says, the white man did his very best to herd the Negroes back onto the plantations to pick cotton and sing songs and be happy. They even sent out a special group that recognized that that African Americans were sensitive to white triangles. Is that how they called it? Those hoods? Basil said, and now look at this. Look at this. Clyde Bundy says that's where the term hoodie comes from. So that's more proof that that young black Americans have come to respect white guys in hoods. Okay. Is he going to call in or what? I mean, you know, with we didn't. Oh, okay. For those citizens of what Basil and I and Snarky refer to as the dumb Dannies. That works better. Okay. Almost like we planned it. Hold on. Okay. We got another minute to go. Oh. Hello, Basil BuddhaCat presents. Basil, it's not Clive Bundy. Basil said, Basil's not. He knows it's not Clive Bundy calling in. He's giving me that look, which tells me that I was half right. When he curls a whisker from the right side over to the left side, and flicks a whisker on the left side with a whisker from the right side, that means you're half right. It's actually half right, not Clive Bundy, but Ted Bundy. Now, Ted Bundy's dead. Oh, I didn't mean to let the cat out of the bag. He didn't realize it. Okay, we're gonna have to come back and continue on with our Basil-A-Thon after a quick snooze.
They say they'd rob your grandma blind on Wall Street, fritter her away her Medicare on Wall Street. And Pharma Oil and their pet fox don't care if she lives in a box, so long as they wear platinum jocks on Wall Street, on Wall Street. Meow.